The sun shines brightly on a frigid day, with temperatures holding near 38 degrees. It is the ideal atmosphere for the momentous events that are about to take place. Clear skies and sharp air characterize this January afternoon in Washington, making every detail appear distinct and focused. There are no clouds or haze, yet the air feels dense and vibrates with a palpable tension. President Donald Trump takes his position at the podium, where the presidential seal glimmers in the winter light. He wears a perfectly fitted blue suit, likely a custom brioni, paired with a red tie that projects absolute authority. An American flag pin sits slightly crooked on his lapel, but he is too focused on victory to notice such details. His confident smile has transformed today into something more predatory, resembling a shark sensing vulnerability in the water. Behind him stands the West Wing with its white columns, representing the enduring power of the nation. Cameras are positioned everywhere, numbering far more than usual for a typical press briefing. Every major television network is represented here today to capture the unfolding scene. CNN has deployed 3 complete crews, including anchors and technical support staff. Fox News sent 5 teams because they anticipated this would be a massive story. MSNBC dispatched their entire White House unit, and international outlets like Al Jazeera and the BBC are present as well. Representative Ilhan Omar is positioned to the left, standing roughly 15 feet away from the president. She is close enough to be captured in the camera frame and to hear every word clearly. The Democrat from Minneapolis and progressive icon attempts to project strength, but she is struggling to maintain her composure. Her hands are clasped tightly together in front of her, causing her knuckles to turn white from the pressure. She understands that the media has gathered not just for the financial story, but for the chaos in her city. Trump adjusts the microphone downward to suit his height before pausing for effect. He stares directly into the camera lenses before slowly turning his body to face Omar. The silence in the Rose Garden becomes overwhelming and deafening. Trump begins speaking in a low, dangerous tone, stating that they must discuss what is happening in her state. He points a finger toward the press corps and mentions the coverage of the anarchy in Minneapolis. He notes that the media has been complaining about the tragedy involving a man named Alex Prey. Trump expresses disgust that the media blames his agents and calls them terrorists. He points out that Representative Omar described the incident as an execution and incited her followers. She had described the armed man as a kind soul who was merely helping a woman in the snow. Omar steps forward instinctively, unable to restrain herself from responding to the accusation. She claims the man was an ICU nurse and veteran caretaker who was shot while holding a phone. Trump cuts her off immediately, his voice booming across the lawn. He asserts that the man was carrying a 9mm semi-automatic weapon with 2 cartridges. His agents were surrounded by a mob in freezing temperatures and acted as heroes to defend themselves. He criticizes Governor Tim Walz for incompetence and for calling the federal government an occupying force. Trump notes that the governor refused to provide security for his Treasury Secretary during a fraud investigation. He leans over the podium and stares Omar down, accusing her of wanting to run a warlord kingdom. He promises to send more agents to restore order if the local government refuses to do so. Trump contrasts her behavior with the socialist mayor of New York, Mamdani Zoran, who respects the office. He explains that Zoran visited the Oval Office to negotiate and now texts him to save his city. Trump smiles cruelly, noting that while Zoran makes deals, Omar only creates riots. He mentions his trade dealings with Canada and his blunt truth-telling to European allies regarding Afghanistan. He claims to receive respect from world leaders, while Omar offers only chaos and lies about peaceful protests. He pauses to let the weight of his words settle upon the audience. Trump accuses her of using the violence as a distraction to avoid discussing the financial issues. He reaches beneath the podium and retrieves a very thick folder full of documents. The binder is organized with 6 colored tabs sticking out from the side. Trump announces that her riots and fake tears will not save her today. He opens the folder, and the sound of turning pages echoes through the quiet garden. He declares the launch of Operation Clean Plate, a massive multi-agency federal investigation. It is described as the largest inquiry in American history regarding welfare and pandemic fraud. This fraud has been occurring in Minnesota for years, amounting to $1 billion, or perhaps even more. The money was stolen from hungry American children and hardworking taxpayers. He pauses to let the magnitude of the number sink in, emphasizing the billion with a B. The cameras zoom in on his face, capturing his serious and presidential demeanor. He gestures toward Congresswoman Omar, who manages a forced and uncomfortable smile for the cameras. High-definition lenses capture every micro-expression as the focus shifts to her. She represents the district where the majority of this fraud took place. Criminals established fake food sites and shell companies to claim money for children who did not exist. Hundreds of millions of dollars vanished, while fraudsters bought mansions and luxury cars. Trump notes that she sponsored the Meals Act of 2020, which made this fraud possible. Her legislation weakened oversight, reduced audits, and removed necessary safeguards. Omar's smile vanishes completely, and her lawyer tenses up in the background. This interrogation is not following the standard protocol they had expected. Trump adopts a conversational tone, stating he wants to ask some presidential questions before the official announcement. He asserts that the media refuses to ask these hard questions because they are protecting her. He looks directly at the CNN correspondent, calling out their bias on live television. Omar's face is now neutral as she tries to hide her fear, but her white knuckles betray her. Her lawyer signals her not to engage, but it is too late to leave the stage. Trump thanks her for coming and acknowledges her bravery for showing up. He proposes a real conversation about the Meals Act and the fraud it enabled. He mentions her imprisoned campaign official and the mysterious millions that appeared in her accounts. Trump taps the folder to emphasize that everything is documented and proven. He reminds her that he is the president and she is a guest in the White House. He insists that she answer his questions truthfully before she makes her statement. Omar attempts to speak, but Trump holds up his hand to stop her. He explains that protocol dictates the president asks questions first. He asks if she knew her bill would enable the largest fraud in American history when she sponsored it. He demands a simple yes or no answer to this foundational question. The Rose Garden erupts in shock, with reporters whispering and gasping at the scene. This is an unprecedented public interrogation of a sitting member of Congress. Omar clenches her jaw, struggling to control her anger and panic. She attempts to explain that the fraud was committed by criminals exploiting good intentions. Trump stops her firmly, stating that her response is a deflection and not an answer. He reiterates the question, asking if she knew her bill would be used to steal $1 billion. She tries again, arguing she cannot be held responsible for the actions of criminals. Trump interprets her response as a no, implying she was incompetent for writing a bill with no safeguards. He suggests the alternative is that she knew and allowed it to happen to benefit her constituents. He expresses confidence that his investigators from the FBI and IRS will find the truth. Trump opens the blue tab to reveal the first section of evidence. He asks if she remembers her campaign official and friend, Gwad Hashi Say. Omar nods barely, confirming she remembers the man she took many photos with. Trump reveals that Guad has been convicted of stealing nearly $4 million using a fake food site. He claimed to feed 5,000 non-existent children every day while pocketing the money. Guad is now serving time in federal prison where he belongs. Trump stares piercingly at Omar and asks if she knew he was stealing. The cameras zoom in tight on Omar's face as the color drains from her skin. She realizes this investigation covers her personal crimes and corruption, not just general fraud. Her voice shakes as she suggests following proper legal procedure. Trump interrupts cheerfully, agreeing that discussing it is exactly why they are there. He demands to know if she knew the man in her campaign photos was a thief. Silence hangs heavy in the rose garden for 40 seconds, broken only by camera shutters. Omar cannot answer because either option destroys her credibility or incriminates her. Trump moves on, stating they will revisit that question later. He announces that his team has found shocking details about her finances and her husband. He spreads the folder open to show the sheer volume of evidence collected. He outlines the plan to go through 6 major scandals represented by the colored tabs. Trump declares that after presenting all the evidence, the American people can decide the truth. They will judge if she is a victim or a corrupt politician who betrayed her country. Omar looks at her lawyer in panic, but he shakes his head helplessly. She is trapped on live television and must endure the dismantling of her career. Trump adopts a prosecutor's tone, stating that numbers never lie, unlike politicians. He recounts the timeline of the Meals Act, which she sponsored during the pandemic. He acknowledges the noble purpose, but highlights how the bill weakened oversight mechanisms. The legislation allowed money to flow freely without verification, creating a massive opportunity for fraud. Trump displays a chart showing the hundreds of millions stolen by the nonprofit Feeding Our Future. He notes that the total fraud could reach $1 billion due to the lack of records. The scheme involved empty lots and fake addresses instead of feeding real children. He holds up a photo of the Safari restaurant, whose owner was convicted of money laundering. He then displays a photo of Omar smiling and serving food at that same restaurant. Trump asks if she knew the restaurant was part of a massive fraud scheme when she was there. She claims she was unaware of any criminal activity at the time. Trump concludes she was incompetent for missing $70 million in fraud right in front of her. He moves to the next photo, showing her celebrating with Guad Hashisai. He details how Guad ran her ground game while stealing millions from the government. Guad pleaded guilty to the entire scheme and is now in prison. Trump asks how she could not know her own campaign official was a criminal. She states she returned his donations after learning of the charges. Trump points out she only returned a tiny fraction, and only after the indictment was public. He summarizes that she enabled the fraud, celebrated at fraud sites, and employed criminals. He concludes the first scandal and moves to the second regarding her mysterious wealth. He asks simply if she is a millionaire, and her hesitation is noted by everyone. He contrasts her claim of being a working mom with her financial disclosure showing $30 million. He holds up 2 documents to show the impossible jump in her net worth in 1 year. He questions how her winery investment increased in value by 100 times. He notes that investors in the winery are suing for fraud, while she claims it is worth millions. He demands an explanation for the discrepancy between the failing business and her disclosure. Trump then highlights her husband's venture capital firm. Court documents showed the firm had $42, yet she listed it at $25 million. He asks how $42 transforms into $25 million on a government form. Silence follows as she has no explanation for the impossible numbers. Trump suggests she hid illegal money in these businesses to make it appear legitimate. He notes that her campaigns paid her husband's companies nearly $3 million. He transitions to the third scandal involving Tim Minett and the campaign payments. He describes Minett as a consultant whom his team has researched extensively. Trump reveals that her campaign paid Minett's firm an exorbitant amount for a safe congressional seat. He reads the figure of nearly $3 million from the official FEC report. Trump outlines the timeline of their affair and travel during the payments. He reads from Minett's divorce papers, where his wife blamed Omar for the marriage ending. Trump suggests the payments were hush money disguised as consulting fees. He asks if she paid him millions to keep him quiet about the affair. She attempts to defend the payments as legitimate services, but Trump demands a yes or no. He notes that she married Minett shortly after cutting ties with his firm. Trump calls it money laundering and corruption rather than love. He moves to the fourth scandal involving her marriage to Ahmed Noor Saeed Elmi. He cites records suggesting Elmi is her brother and that they lived at the same address. Trump accuses her of tax fraud for filing jointly with another man while married to Elmi. He suggests the marriage was for immigration fraud and notes she refused a DNA test. He transitions to the fifth scandal regarding her anti-Semitism. He mentions her visit to Columbia University and her attacks on Jewish students. Trump states that her rhetoric has made Jewish Americans feel unsafe. He asks if she believes Israel has a right to exist, but she refuses to answer. He interprets her silence as a confirmation of her views. Trump moves to the final scandal regarding her loyalty to Somalia. He cites her speech where she claimed to be Somali first. He reveals a Treasury investigation into whether fraud money was sent to terrorists. Trump warns that if money went to al-Shabaab, it constitutes treason. He mentions that the FBI director is personally investigating the matter. Later that day, Democratic leadership abandons her as investigations are announced. A teacher in Minneapolis laments the money stolen from her students. The local imam thanks Trump for exposing the criminals who hid behind their community. 2 weeks later, Omar announces she will not seek re-election. Trump holds a press conference to claim victory for exposing the corruption. He states that he did what the media refused to do. The story concludes with a call to share the truth and demand accountability. The swamp is being drained, one corrupt politician at a time.